everyone. This is Kay from the K Touch, where we make art and we have conversation. And today I have the immense privilege of speaking with Katherine Klimitas. Now, Katherine is a disabled artist, but she is a keynote speaker, author, and graphic designer, and most importantly, the founder of CAC Art. So she does a lot of lovely art, particularly working with animals in her art. And now she's going to tell us about her journey and how she's gotten here. Katherine is really talented. And although I'm going to be making art as I'm speaking with Katherine, hopefully she's not going to be too harsh on how my art turns out.
No, of course not.
It's good to meet you, Katherine, finally.
Me too. I know. Yes, very good.
Yes.
I'm
Tell me
6
how.
hours ahead of you.
Yeah, six whole hours ahead of me, and
That's right.
yeah, it's just so interesting how it is that we can be talking like this, but
I know.
time zones are so different.
The amazing qualities of technology.
We work with what we have anyway.
That's right.
We've been able to make this work, which is the most important thing. So I'm going to start off really with just tell us a little bit about yourself. Who is Katherine?
So I live right outside of New Orleans, Louisiana, in the United States. Most people have a pretty good idea of where that is. And I have lived here basically all my life. I am an artist and a graphic designer. I got into art at a really young age, and I was born with a genetic bone disease called osteogenesis imperfecta, which is better known as brittle bone disease, and it basically means that my bones break easily and they grow abnormally. So as you can see, I'm laying down, which is the most comfortable position for me. And I am only 2'7". I do have an electric wheelchair that I use to get around. I usually have an aide with me almost all the time. And yeah, this is something I was born with, so it's very normal for me. It's, I've dealt with it my entire life. And so, yeah, I had a pretty good childhood and growing up, and decided I wanted to go into art, and did that. Kind of started in high school, but high school and college. So, yeah.
Wow. We're going to go into your art because your art is amazing. That's the
Thank you.
That's my way of saying it. I look at your art and I'm like, okay, wow. First of all, I just say that I hadn't even seen your art before I had encountered you. So through your many videos, your interviews and all of that, I knew you. And then by chance I was like, okay, let's just look at, because I'm an artist, so you see art left, right, and center, right?
Yeah.
And then I went on the site and saw some of the art and I was like, oh my goodness, this is next level here. So we're going to go into that a bit. But just you shared a bit about you having brittle bone disease and growing up with that. Could you just give us a little bit of an insight in terms of how challenging it was? I mean, right now it's something you've obviously grown with, but how was it when you first noticed that this was a challenge for you?
I don't know if there was a point where I noticed that it was a challenge. There was not one moment, I had parents that, my dad passed away several years ago, but both of my parents were veterinarians. And so my mom is still practicing, but, I grew up with two parents who, thank God, had some medical knowledge, and also my grandfather is a family doctor. So that helped a lot too. And so they were able to, I feel like for somebody else who didn't have family in the medical field, I feel like my family at least was able to make more informed decisions about me, and advocate more for me, because this is a relatively rare disease. There's actually only, and this could be a little bit off because I haven't looked at these numbers in a while, but the last time I checked, only 40,000 people in the United States have this disease.
Wow.
And it comes in different stages, and mine is one of the most severe. So of that 40,000, maybe it's 6 or 8,000 that are like me. So doctors don't see this very often. Oftentimes it's just a line in a textbook, when they're in medical school. And so, so having that family that had some knowledge was really helpful. And so, they basically said, well, there's all these things she can't do, but let's try to find something she can do. And so that's kind of how I grew up and how my life has always been.
Yeah.
And so I was really, really smart. And and I say that, but what I mean is like book smart, because if you think about it, right, when a baby starts to learn things, they start to learn to crawl first. They start to learn to move first. Well, I didn't have to do that. I couldn't do that. So I learned to talk first. And so I was driving my mother insane.
I was about to say that.
Yeah. So I was driving because of course I couldn't move, right? So I couldn't do things for myself, but I was asking for stuff constantly, right? In full sentences, like, and all that. And so she was always trying to find things that I could do to keep me occupied. And she bought me, when I was about 5, she bought me a watercolor set. And it, one of those cheap kids watercolor sets with the cakey things and the terrible brush and all that. And I loved it. Like, I got totally into it. And she realized that I was totally into it. But I was pretty good at it for a 5-year-old, with no instruction. And so she just continued to make sure I was enrolled in art in school. And then, we did crafts at home, and I had private art teachers and summer camps and things like that, all the way through high school. So growing up, I went to mainstream schools, so I went to schools where it was, except for me, everybody else was able-bodied. Like, nobody else had a physical disability. So at least not until my senior year of high school. My senior year of high school, I was one of 2. But it was just, I was different, but I wasn't, because they always made sure I was included in as much as I could be. And so it really, and like when I couldn't be included, when I couldn't like go play football or whatever it was they were doing, I guess girls don't really play football, but I mean, doing PE or whatever, I would have art instead, which worked out really well for me. So, yeah, I mean, growing up, of course, there were moments of annoying, and I wish I could do that, and it's frustrating that I can't do what my friends do and all that, but it wasn't that bad.
Good.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really lovely to hear. But you said something really interesting about the whole art process, about having an interest in art from about even 5 years old, having your first watercolor set. I can't remember when my interest in art started. I come from a family of artists in one way or the other, not formally trained, but we all have some interest in art and have been able to express ourselves in art. And then with me, all I remember is I used to love it so much, but at some point I just gave up on it. Life took over, and I started being really serious. Well, not that art isn't serious, but I was focusing.
Oh yeah, no, I get it. Yeah.
And then it was just last year, after what I experienced or what I came to realize as some kind of mental awareness of, what it is that the direction in my life I didn't want to go anymore. And then art came back as an interest for me, and I have decided to explore it. So I was really excited just seeing your profile, just stumbling across it, and I was like, no, I must speak with you.
Yeah.
But before we get a bit more into the art, out of curiosity, I want to know how you manage, as it is right now, how you manage any discomfort or pain you might be experiencing as a result of this.
Oh, I mean, I have a few ways I manage it. It depends on what level it's at. I mean, there's usually not a moment in any day where I'm not in some kind of pain.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, that's not saying it's always excruciating. I mean, normally it's just kind of there, and
just something is
there.
Like
I'm having some rib issues the last few weeks because I had a really bad viral thing in January that it took me forever to get over. So like when I cough a lot, I break ribs. So you manage it with, I generally do over the counter stuff.
Okay.
So like Motrin and Excedrin, those kinds of things. And then my mom is a homeopathic veterinarian. Okay. So she does a lot of natural remedies. So I
Yeah.
do some homeopathy, I do some herbal medicine, I do things like hot packs, like
Okay. Yeah.
rice hot
Yeah.
packs.
So it helps with the muscles and all of that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, a hot bath, Epsom salt. We have a pool. I try to get in the pool and stretch. I
Okay.
mean, things like that.
Yeah.
We eat well. Like we just try to stay generally healthy.
That's good.
Those kinds of things.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's cool. That's good to know. So now you've told us a bit about how the journey began with the art, which is fascinating. So can you share a bit about Loyola University? Because
Yeah.
that's where you had your, I would say your formal training, formal experience with art. But how was it generally, the experience in that university?
It was good. So before I get into that though,
Mhm.
I that is where I had my formal training in graphic design. That
Oh,
is true.
okay.
Because my degree is actually in graphic design, and I'll tell you why in a minute. But I actually had I always feel like my formal training was in high school because my mom hired a who was a client of her, this woman who was a client of hers
Hmm.
at the time, who worked at a community college
Yeah.
here in New Orleans, and she was an incredible artist
Hmm.
and taught me how to draw, and like really how to draw.
Yes, I'm going to be
Like,
asking a bit because I heard you
yeah.
mention her, and
And so
yeah.
I feel like the art training I got from her was even more formal than what I got at Loyola.
Hmm.
Even though, that came directly from a university. The art training I got from Robin was, I mean, it was drawing circles without a compass and lines without a ruler, and
Yes,
like,
yes.
and looking at something and drawing from life. And, those are all the things you do learn it in university, but I learned it 4 years before that.
Yeah, yeah.
So I really feel like, and because we were one on one, I feel like I learned it even better
Hmm.
than a lot of people, get the chance to. So yes, but Loyola was good. When I decided to start looking at colleges in New Orleans, I basically had three choices,
Hmm.
and just because of my disability and my living situation, leaving for college was going to be really hard.
Hmm.
And so we looked at all three options, and it really boiled down to, because all three are decent schools. Like, no, that's not. It really boiled down to accessibility
Hmm.
on campus and
Yeah.
how willing the university was to work with me
Yep.
on accommodations.
Yep.
And one of the schools was just in an area that we have a lot of oak trees, like big live oak trees, and they break up our sidewalks, like their root systems break up. And that campus was just impossible for me to navigate. Like,
Hmm.
that was just not going to work. The
Yeah.
other campus I actually really liked, but it's spread out next to a lake, and it's so spread out. And we have some flooding problems here,
Hmm.
even when it just rains. Like, it doesn't have to be a hurricane, it doesn't have to be a huge storm. It can just rain, and then stuff floods. And unfortunately, that area is one of them. And on the day I toured that college, it rained and it flooded, and I had to stop. And so I was like, well, if I can't even get through the
Yep.
tour,
Yep.
like,
Yep.
that's a problem. And so Loyola, the campus is very compact. We actually knew the man who was in charge of putting the classes in the rooms.
Okay.
And so what we would do is give him my schedule first, and
Oh,
he would
wow.
make my schedule as compact as it could be,
Oh, wow.
which was amazing. So he was there the whole 4 years I was there. So that was great. I was glad he waited to retire till after I was gone. But that was really wonderful, and I never had a problem with professors giving me the things I needed.
Yeah.
Not that I needed much, but a little bit. And I feel like, I mean, I went to a very academically rigorous high school.
Yeah.
I mean, I worked really hard in high school.
Hmm.
And so my first couple of years at Loyola felt not that difficult, because compared to high school, like, compared to how hard I worked my senior year in high school,
Hmm.
classes at Loyola were no big deal. But of course, as they got more advanced, they
Yep.
got harder,
Yep.
right? And then in the beginning, you take all these prereqs. And so my freshman year, the prereqs are the same for art and for design.
Okay.
It's the same classes. And so I took all of those classes my freshman year, and I realized before I started my sophomore year, which is good, I realized that if I wanted to major in fine art, I would have to make a whole lot of fine art to survive on my art
Oh,
alone.
really?
Like to sell enough art to make any money when
Yeah.
you're not well known, like
Yeah.
that's it's really hard. You know,
Oh,
you have to
wow.
for every one painting you sell, there's 10 or 20 you didn't. You know, and so like it's yeah, that wasn't gonna work. And
Wow. I
so
didn't know this. This is good information, actually.
yeah, it can be really hard. And so I said, well, physically I'm not gonna be able to do that.
Hmm.
And so I had the opportunity still to switch to graphic design, which is more geared toward commercial art.
Hmm.
So it's, you know, creating logos and branding and managing social media and
Hmm.
all these things that businesses need.
Yeah.
And so I do a little bit of both
Okay.
today, basically. Yeah.
Wow. Well, out of curiosity, do you have a preference in terms of what software you use for any of your graphic design? Because I do a bit
Oh,
of that as well. Not so much, but I do some digital art.
yeah, I use Adobe. I
Oh,
mean, I
right.
use the
Okay.
Adobe suite. Yeah.
All right.
When
My
I was in
brother.
school, Corel Draw wasn't even, we didn't even get taught that
All
in
right.
school. Yeah, that didn't even exist.
Wow. Because
Yeah.
so my I use for a lot of my digital art. I don't do so much graphic design, but there is kind of a relationship between them in
Mm-hmm.
a way. But I do some digital art and I use Clip Art Studio. It's just
Mm-hmm.
easier for me to use, less to learn about it. But my younger brother does some graphic design as well, so he uses Adobe. So I do
Mm-hmm.
have some understanding about that. Um, but it was really interesting about how you said about fine art and the market for it. And I'm going to be asking you a little bit about that, especially for upcoming artists and
Mm-hmm.
any tips you can give them. But before we get into that, what was your first, if you can remember, your first professional painting? Now, I heard you mention something about selling a dog painting at some
Yep.
point. Was that your
Yep.
first professional painting, or was there
It
something
was,
before that?
yeah, I mean, it was the first painting I sold.
Mm.
Um, and I was 10.
10. Wow.
My teacher at school had us, like, as a class, I mean, each student had to draw or paint or come up with something for a dog related um, fundraiser.
Okay.
And I don't even remember who it benefited. It was at a really fancy gallery downtown, and I don't even know how this came about, but anyway, he entered my piece into this fundraiser,
Yeah.
and it was huge. The piece was big, and I didn't go. I mean, I was only 10, you
Yeah.
know, and it was in a gallery downtown. Like I didn't. Anyway, my I think my parents went, but it sold. I don't even know what it sold for, but it was an auction. It was a silent auction, and my dad was so cheap that he didn't win it. I was so mad. I was like, you couldn't have outbid somebody for your own daughter's first piece of work. That be okay.
The nerve of the man.
I know. So I do know the person who got it, but anyway, yeah. So that was, and I didn't get the money. That was a fundraiser.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
but shortly thereafter, you know, I'd have to go to my parents' office with them on Saturdays
yeah,
when they were open and I wasn't in school.
yeah.
And I was bored, so I would sit in the uh, waiting room area
Mm.
and draw people's dogs or
Oh,
people's
wow.
pets. And I mean, they weren't very good. I was only 10 or 11, but eventually people started paying me to do it. You know, or they'd bring me a picture, or they'd say,
Wow.
"Oh, I'll pay you $20 to draw my pet," and that's really cool for a 10 or 11 year old.
Oh
You
my.
know,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. And so that's kind of where I feel like I actually really started
Wow.
thinking about selling art.
Because I had a I remember when I sold my first art piece, but I wasn't 10. I was probably older, a bit older in my older teenage years. And when that art piece was sold, it was just a sketch I had made of a building, and it was also a fundraiser. And when it was sold, the first thing that happened to me, because I got the money, unlike you, I actually got the money.
Yeah, I didn't.
But what happened to me when I got the money? I looked at it. It was a small amount of money. And then I looked at the money and I But even though it was so small, it was small to older people. To me, it was like the world.
Oh yeah.
I was like, until now, it still happens in shock when things like that happen. I look at it and like, you really want to pay me for this? That was the reaction.
Yeah. I still have those moments. I have less of those moments now
All right.
because I actually feel like what I've done is good
It is
most
very
of the
good.
time.
Not just good,
Most of
very
the
good.
time. Most of the time. But there are paintings like I've sold and I'm like, this is my least favorite thing I have done in 2 years. And somebody's buying it. Okay. I mean, I'm not going to tell them, you know? Great.
Good on you, right?
And it never fails. Like, I'll
Wow.
do a series. Like, I did a series last year that was a 61 painting series. And
Okay.
it was exhausting. But anyway, it was a 61 painting series. And the two that I liked the least out of all 61 paintings
Hmm.
sold within the first week.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, whatever. There are so much better paintings here. So many better paintings, but whatever. That's
But
fine.
isn't beauty in the eyes of the beholder?
It is.
It
It
is.
is.
So there you go.
It is. So yeah, there you
That's really
go.
interesting though. Okay, still on the art thing. Um, do you remember any distinct times? So this is the question I ask people that come on my show in terms of syndrome. Have you ever wrestled with that before? I know I have. And if you did, do you know any how you've navigated through that space if you've ever had it? But
What do
you
you
know,
mean? Like
so
I don't
basically,
belong here?
am I the one who's making this? Am I really as good as people say I am? Just wrestling with any of that. A confidence
Um.
level, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that relatively often.
Hmm.
I feel like I don't know if I feel exactly like that. No,
Okay.
what I normally feel like is I have kind of plateaued, which I
Hmm.
know is not true, but it's kind of like I do the same technique over and over, like of
Okay.
different animals.
Yeah.
And so it feels like I'm not evolving, which
Mm.
I am because when I look at paintings from 4 years ago, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm way better than that now.
Yeah.
But I mean, but it's not anything. It's subtle. Like
Yeah.
it's not anything like okay, now I'm gonna use gold leafing in my paintings. Like
Mm.
it's not anything drastic. And so
Yeah.
sometimes it feels like should I be doing more? Like, is there something
Mm.
else I should be doing? It's not so much what you were saying. It's more just personally, like, should I be doing more? But quite honestly, I don't have time. Like, I right now, I don't have, for whatever reason, the last month or so has been really busy,
Yeah.
and between my design clients and my art,
Yeah.
and I don't have the time to like sit down and
Explore.
play with something. Yeah, that
Yeah.
I'm not getting paid to do.
Hmm.
Like, because I'm sure like it's really hard to give yourself some leeway and say, okay, I'm going to give myself a couple of hours just to do whatever I want
Yeah.
when there's 4 paintings that are getting paid for
Mm.
sitting
Mhm.
right there that you need to do.
Yes.
You know, so yeah, I mean it's hard.
But it's interesting you say about now you're getting me to think about things that I hadn't even considered exploring with this whole concept of art. How it is that you could have a technique, how your preferable technique, you could have it pinned down in such a way that you would even, for lack of a better word, you could do it with your eyes closed because you understand just the way you go about it.
Yep, yep.
But that's interesting about the evolution of art because I would look at your art and I don't know what more. It's all personal to the artist, but I don't know what more evolution should come with it because beauty is beauty, you
Yeah,
know?
I don't know either. I mean, I part of me is like at some point I am gonna be making enough money, like I'll be financially relatively stable
Hmm.
that I can let myself take another class. Like I don't like drawing people, but I would love to do another figure drawing class because figure drawing is like, if you've ever done figure drawing, it's not like regular art. Like it's
No.
completely different and it's fun and it moves fast and
Yep.
it's just, I love figure drawing. And I haven't done it since college. But the other reason I kind of wanted to do that is my technique is super like I could never do what you're doing right now.
Hmm.
I could never just say, I'm just going to draw out of my imagination. No way. That is not going to happen. So my technique is so controlled that doing something, being in a class where I have a teacher or a professor or whatever sitting there telling me, no, you're going to try this, it would be probably very beneficial for me.
Yeah, it'd be fun, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would. And I'm not at a point where I can do that right now, but eventually, I want to get to that point.
Well, I want to get to your, so it's good you're saying this. Maybe this would be a therapy for both of us in the sense I would like to get to a point where I can, because I'm presently experimenting with various things. Whilst I am more confident in my imagination, I can draw things. They won't necessarily be 100% a representation, but I'm really good with proportions in my mind. With poses and all of that, but I struggle to, and we're going to come to a point because I heard you say once that don't draw things as you think they should be, but as they are. I can't remember exactly how you said it, and I'll come to that. But at the moment, I'm experimenting with life drawing. Even before earlier on today, I actually went to a city not too far from where I stay, Basingstoke, and I sat down and started drawing a building. And I put my own touches into it, but I am allowing myself to experiment, and it's really good. So I'm not at the level with yours where you've got, this clientele and people asking you. So that gives me the freedom to just explore, and I'm enjoying the process. So
I bet. Envy you. Why envy you? Because I haven't gotten to do that in a long time. Believe me, it's been a while, but I feel like I financially last year was difficult. So I feel like, by the end of this year, hopefully I'll be at a more stable point, and I'll be able to maybe look at doing something a little different for myself. I'm currently working on the way I'm marketing myself and social media and all that stuff, because if you don't know, I do that for other people, but it's really hard to do that for yourself. So, I'm working with somebody else, and anyway, that's really neither here nor there. But it's hopefully by the end of the year I can do something a little different. But,
and I've looked at some of your art again. I hope you won't mind me sharing some of the pictures.
No, of course not.
Just so people can see exactly what I'm talking about here. But tell us a bit about CAC art and designs. I know you've told us about your love for making animals and all of that, but above everything else, you're a businesswoman, and you founded this. So can you just tell us a bit about the journey of, for instance, when you first had the idea to establish this, and how long it's been?
So I told you I grew up in my parents' office, basically, and they owned their own veterinary business. Well, eventually they split off and they each owned one. And so I grew up around people who own their own businesses. So it was not a foreign idea to me to own my own business. I mean, I watched them, I watched them hire employees. I watched them do the money. I watched them run the taxes. I watched all the things they had to do. I watched them do the marketing, all the things they had to do that any business has to do. I watched from a very early age. So that was not difficult. I made myself business cards. And I don't remember what age I was, but probably 10 or 11 when I started getting people asking me for, pet portraits, which were not really. But anyway, I made myself business cards on Print Shop Deluxe or something, which that's really dating myself. But anyway, I, one of those really terrible programs that were out in the 90s. Okay. And I called it CAC art, and it just stuck. I couldn't get out of it. And, because I did it when I was 10 or 11, and because, I was busy in high school, and I painted a little bit in high school, but not a ton. But, I just kept it kind of going on the back burner kind of thing through high school and college. And then by the time I graduated, I was like, well, I guess I'm stuck with it, and so that's what, eventually I actually, for real, made a business.
So how long has it been in existence for?
Well, technically, since 2011.
Wow.
Technically, registered with the government, 2011. But I mean, I've had business cards that say CAC art since I was 12.
So we're talking over 23 years then.
A long time.
Wow.
A long time. So, and like I said, it's not, so KAK is my initials. So it's not like necessarily what I would now choose as an adult.
Yeah.
But
it is catchy though.
It is, and it's stuck, and I'm just like, well, I guess I'm just gonna go with it. It is what it is. So,
oh wow. Well, yeah, so you're a businesswoman, you are,
yeah.
and that's that. So this business is about art and design. I know you have an Etsy shop as well.
I do.
So you do sell a lot of your art through that as well.
I do.
Well, how do you now manage all of that with also public speaking and you're mad crazy. That's what it means. You just got all of these.
Yeah, it feels like it. I work really. I mean, I work a lot.
Yeah.
And again, that's modeled after my parents because my parents worked all the time. My mom still does. So I learned probably one of the most valuable things I've learned first watching my dad and then my mom was or is that you need to have a really good team around you because you can't do it all. And so you have to be able to delegate and you have to be able to trust who you delegate to. You know, that they're doing a good job. And so, like, when my dad was alive, he was really good at paperwork. That was his thing. Well, mom and I both suck at it. I mean, we're terrible at taxes. And, you know, when the government says, send us this, we don't know what that means. I mean, so we have a really good CPA that does. We each have really good bookkeepers, you know, who keep all of that together and monitor our expenses and that kind of thing. I have two really good aides, you know, two really good assistants who, you know, one of them is new, but the one has been with me for 13 years and there are jobs that I give her, you know, that she manages for me, which is great. I mean, I'm still doing pretty much all of the creative aspect, but like, you know, things like managing inventory and getting things mailed out. And I have a girl that helps me with some of my social media marketing and some of that. Even I do some of it, but just having somebody to bounce ideas off of who is also educated in that field is really helpful. You know, so having those people around you is extremely helpful.
Yeah, and that this is you talking again like a businesswoman because I don't even have half of what you have in terms of support. A lot of my business, the K Touch, is just developing. So I'm hoping to get to a point where I can then let go of some of the responsibilities and have others take it over. But you've made a really good point about trusting people with the process because sometimes when it's your business, your baby, you know, you feel like no one else can do it as well as you can.
Well, sometimes that happens and then you have to take it back.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had that happen recently, you know, where I've had to step back into some roles and be like, oh, good, I'll just add this back to my plate. Perfect. You know, but it happens, you know, and you readjust and you decide, like I mentioned, I'm going to be kind of redoing the way my social media marketing works. And, you know, I need to decide, like, this is just one of the things that I've got to decide, but, you know, is it really worth it for me to keep a TikTok?
Yeah.
Probably not, because I don't have the time to put into it. And the age group that uses TikTok is really not my target audience. So I mean, like in general, it's really not my target audience. So why do I even have it? You know, I've had it for a year. It's barely grown at all. I've gotten maybe one piece of business off of it in that entire year when I've gotten 30 off of Facebook.
Yeah.
You know, so like why would you put money and effort into that?
Yep.
You know, and it's things like that. And so my dad had this expression, which is, I think, a relatively common expression. You just keep throwing spaghetti up against the wall and you see what sticks. You know, I don't know. Apparently, that's not common.
It's not a thing I'm used to, but I get where that's
okay. Maybe that's a cultural thing. I don't know.
You ask me, but you know.
I agree. I would still eat it, honestly. But anyway, pasta is one of my favorite things.
That's one of my wife's favorite things.
I love pasta. But anyway, you know, and you see what sticks. And like, if it works, great. If it doesn't, you just move on to the next thing. You know?
Wow.
So, yeah.
Wow. Okay. But why animals? Is it because of you grew up with your
Yeah,
parents being vets and okay.
yeah, and I mean, I was surrounded by them. I've never had. I think the lowest number of pets I've ever had is 3 dogs.
Wow.
Right now we have 6. Uh, but I've had like 2 dogs and 4 cats. I've had 1 dog and 4 cats. I mean, I've
Okay.
had, hamsters and snakes and all kinds of things.
So
Uh,
what your pets at the moment, are they all the same breed? Because I know
no,
you've got
none
an
of them
Italian
are.
Greyhound.
No,
And
we have two McNabb shepherds, which is kind of like a short haired border collie.
okay.
So we have 2 of them. We have an Italian Greyhound. We have a Pomeranian Papillon mix, who's adorable and definitely my dog.
I can already see who's your favorite. My
Yeah, right.
goodness. You're not
I know.
supposed to have any.
I know, but she's my. I mean, I picked her. Um, and we have a Labradoodle
Okay.
who's very old. She's our kind of hospice dog.
Um,
And and a miniature Australian Shepherd.
oh,
Yeah,
okay, okay.
yeah,
Do you
yeah.
have in all of your art, do you have a favorite animal to draw? Oh, not draw.
People
I use the
ask
word
me
draw
this.
because I make sketches, but do you have a
Yeah,
favorite one
people
to
ask me this a lot, and I
yeah.
really don't.
Okay.
Um, I really don't. I would say that every series I do, I have a favorite.
Okay.
Like there's always one that stands out in a
Yeah.
series. You know,
Well, how do
um,
you pick a series then?
it depends on what kind of opportunities are thrown my way.
Okay.
A couple years ago, I did a show at a museum about an hour from here that was all Louisiana birds. So it was a lot of pelicans and egrets and herons and things that live in this area. So that was a series. That was
Okay.
27 paintings, I think. And then I did a lot of dogs and cats after that. And then I really felt burned out on animals with hair. And so I decided to do a bunch of tropical fish. So
Oh,
I did like a
wow.
series of 35 fish. That was fun. I mean, I was
I
ready to
can
be done by the
imagine.
end of 35, but that was really fun. Because it was color, when you're painting dogs and cats,
Yeah.
it's brown,
Mm,
black,
mm,
white, a different brown,
yeah.
yellow. That's about it. That's about as far as it goes. Um, and then after that, I got asked to do another Louisiana series, but it was all different animals. So it was all different Louisiana animals. And
Wow.
so, I mean, I had insects and mammals and birds and all kinds
Ooh,
of things in that one. So,
fancy.
yeah, that was fun. That one was fun. It was just a lot, but it was fun. So it really kind of depends on what opportunities I'm given.
Yeah,
Sometimes I see a photo somewhere and I'm like, "Ooh, I want to paint that," and then that becomes a series.
yeah.
It just kind of depends.
But you said something about, I mean, well, I would love to know if there's any particular animal you haven't explored yet in a zoo. But I'm
There
sure
is.
there are a lot of
Oh,
them.
there are. I mean, like at some point, I'd really like to do a series of monkeys. Like I've done
Oh, that
monkeys.
should be fun.
I've done
Let me
them, but
know
it
when you
would
do
be
that.
yeah, but it would be fun to do like a series of monkeys. Um, I mean, I have another idea for a series I don't want to completely talk about yet,
Okay.
but
Yeah.
it's it has to do. It's gonna be a nod back to famous artists,
Okay.
basically. And
Mm.
so it's an idea I've had for a long time that I played with as a kid, but not very well because I was a kid. So now I want to do it like as an adult, and it's going to be interesting. I just have to get time. This is the
Mm.
problem. I just have to get time to do it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It's
So,
time that's the issue, isn't
yeah.
it?
Right. Right.
Yeah, but you've said about burnouts, and I don't hear that often. I don't hear artists talk about that often. Now I know it's something that anyone from any field can experience, and I've experienced it, and it's so frustrating. No, I'll tell you two things. So there's burnout, but then I also have what I've called an artist overload. So
Mm-hmm.
when I've started one project I haven't finished, and then it's like a shiny new object that appears from
Oh, I
nowhere.
can't do that. I can't do that. I don't like it when things are not finished. That really bothers me. Yeah, I will definitely finish stuff if I start it. Like the series I'm talking about, I started it and it's driving me crazy that I have not been able to go back to it.
Wow.
Um, no, I don't like that at all.
How do you
Burnout,
keep yourself focused on that to finish a project?
I just do. It's all about time management. I don't know, which I'm obviously not doing very well with right now. But I no burnout happens. I mean, and it's not always that I get burned out from painting completely. It's usually that I'm burned out from painting a certain thing. Like if I've done a bajillion birds,
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't ever want to see another freaking bird again in my entire life. Or like around Christmas,
Show
I
me
get
another
asked.
pelican and I'll kill you.
Yeah, I know. Around Christmas, I do a lot of pet portraits because people give them as gifts. And so by that time, because I never am able to finish everything before Christmas, it never happens.
Yeah.
So it's usually January into February that I'm finishing Christmas stuff. So by the time I'm done with February, I'm like, I don't want to paint another dog. I need to paint something else. Like I need some. That's part of why I did the fish because I just needed something that was like, I got to use like iridescent paint with the fish and like, all these fun colors and like, something totally different. And that was good. I just needed a break, you know.
I can imagine that. So again, with me, burnout, all I need whenever burnout comes is just rest. When I have sleep and I don't do anything, it's just rest. But why rest is frustrating is because obviously when you're resting, you're not making art.
Exactly.
And so I then get upset because I'm not making art.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a balance. It's a balance. I mean, I am frustrated today because this is the second day I've tried to get to this painting and I haven't had time because my clients have needed so much stuff. My design clients. So I have two clients right now with events that are coming up, like within the next couple of weeks. And so this is the time where the print deadlines are, where they're doing posters and signage and t-shirts and all this stuff. And so they're needing stuff like on a deadline, which means that I don't have 4 or 5 hours to sit down and paint. It's so annoying. So frustrating.
And this is why I chose to do, and obviously you have your interests and passions and all of that, but this is one of the reasons why I do pop art and what I consider surface art. So I don't go into detail. I just do the art and I make it quick. And I was telling someone that was a couple of days ago that the reason why I do it is because okay, I've got this idea. I just want it to die. I wanted to get out of my system so I can focus on something else.
Yes.
That's why I make quick art. It's not because I don't want to go into detail, but I'm like, how much detail do I have to go into before I can leave this project and go on to the next one?
I understand. That's why I like to work small. That's why I don't work very big. I just did a tiger for my grandfather because the college football, like American football team is the Louisiana State Tigers, like Louisiana State University Tigers. And my grandfather's a big fan of that. And he just turned 90. So I just did this tiger for him, but the tiger is 12 by 16, which is much bigger than I like to work. I mean,
12 by 16 is a big deal.
It's relatively big, and when your followers see my style, they'll understand. Like, I do a lot of layers, and it's a lot of brush strokes. So 12 by 16 area is huge. I mean, that's like it's a lot. And yeah, I was so ready to be done with that painting by the time I was done. And it's not that I didn't work on it consistently. I did.
Yeah.
I mean, but it was, oh yeah. I was like, oh, this one's got to be done. This one's got to die. It turned out great. I mean, I love it, but I was like, oh no.
You've had enough.
Yep, I'm done.
Now, I'm going to ask you a few more questions. I'm sorry. It's just I hardly talk to a fellow artist, and there are not many professional artists that I have conversations with. So just bear with me on this one. So, still looking at you've mentioned a lot about clientele. You've obviously built this clientele over a period of time. But I can see how it might be challenging for newcomers to build up that clientele. Can you give any tips on that and things that have helped you in terms of that?
So I have a friend who is like 30 years older than I am,
Okay.
who has, you know, those people who just, they talk in nuggets of wisdom. You
Yeah.
know, yes, okay, this is how she is, right?
Hmm.
And so one of the things she told me a long time ago and has repeated is you got to use what you got. And so um, I think the hardest thing for a newcomer is figuring out what makes you, I mean, I don't want to say special, but you know, what makes
Different,
you
unique,
different.
maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
unique from everybody else.
Hmm.
And so, like for me, part of mine is my style, but there are actually lots of people who do my style or
Okay.
my type of art. But a lot of it for me is who I am
Hmm.
and how I make my art,
Yeah.
right? So because people like to hear my story and they like to hear
Hmm.
that, you know, I draw and paint laying down and you know all that kind of, and they, you know, they like to hear my background and that kind of stuff. So for me, it's more of, it's, I'm selling my art, but I'm also sort of selling
A
myself.
piece of yourself as well. Yeah.
Right, right. And that's not, you know, that's not true for everybody, of course. You know, maybe you just have this really cool art direction that nobody else has done, you know, or whatever it is. But you have to figure out what makes you unique and why that's valuable to your audience.
Yeah. Wow.
I mean,
Okay.
yeah,
No,
yeah.
that's a good one. Thanks for that. What do you think is the public perception of you as an
Mm.
artist? So when you, I mean, people come to you and they tell you, oh, this and that, but what's the vibe you get?
Um, I think that a lot of people are kind of in disbelief just because they're not used to seeing somebody who functions differently
I am
do
one.
something do something worthwhile like that. And I think, I don't know. I mean, I hope people just, you know, it's a hard position, right? Because yes, I have this disability, right? And yes, it's part of me and it's part of my story and
Hmm.
blah blah blah. But that's not, like, I want people to still like my art for my art.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? So it's, but I also, like, this disability is part of my art.
it
You know,
is.
so like it's a double-edged sword. So it's
It
it's
is.
it's a very careful balance. It's a hard one to keep sometimes.
How long do you spend on the average? What's the shortest time you spent on a piece of art and what's the longest?
Oh, the shortest, probably 4 hours, 3 or 4 hours. The longest, I mean, that damn tiger. I don't even know. That was probably 2.5 weeks, relatively
Okay,
consistently.
I'll ask you. There's one I saw on your website. I think it was a peacock, blue, light blue. Uh,
Yeah,
how long did that take? Can you remember?
yeah. Probably about 3 days, 4 days, maybe 4 days.
That's
Yeah,
beautiful.
that's
Wow.
pretty average for me.
Okay.
Between 2 and 5 days is pretty
Wow.
average. Yeah,
Wow. Okay. Okay.
yeah.
Then, would you say the tiger is the most challenging one you've ever done?
I would say for sure recently. Yeah, I would say recently that's probably true. There were a couple of really challenging ones in my last series, but they were smaller.
Okay.
So it wasn't as much time. Like
Hmm.
they were still really challenging, but it was a smaller area, so it wasn't quite as bad.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, yeah.
Wow. Okay. Then, what makes we've got we're gradually coming to the end of this. Well, what makes a good artist? Now I'm going to pick you up on some of the things you've said in the past, but
Mhm.
what makes a good artist from your idea, your view?
I think a good artist works hard. That's one
Okay,
thing,
please don't put
and
me to shame.
is, well, and is relatively. I think you have to want it, you know. And so, like, I don't know what that means for everyone, but
Hmm.
for me, that's consistency. You know, like consistently working on it.
Hmm.
Um, because even when, which this recently is rarely happening, but even when I don't have commissions in line, I'm doing something else. You know, I'm coming up with another series, or I'm, you know, working on some other piece
Hmm.
usually. Um, so I think consistency, because you know, I think that there are a lot of people that are born with talent, um, to varying degrees.
Mm.
But I also think there are people that aren't necessarily born with as much, and just because they work really hard and they try really hard and they train themselves and they, do what they have to do to get good, they get really, really good.
Mm.
You know, and I think you can be born with incredible talent, but if you don't hone it, it's not going to really
Yeah,
matter.
it's not going to do anything.
Right? So you kind of you have to at least have an affinity for it,
Hmm.
and then you have to want to work really hard.
Thanks for that. That's a good one. How do you price your art? That's something I don't know. I'm
It's
asking
hard.
because sincerely, I have no idea how people come up with prices for art.
So most of my art has to be framed.
Okay.
So that's a cost, right?
Mm.
I mean, you have to factor in your cost for framing
Mm.
because that's really important. Um, so you know what I mean, just I try to do it by the hour. Like I try to do it hourly, but of course I don't ever really keep track of how many hours I spend on something. I just kind of estimate it, and it's kind of a like, let's just say I have like a 5 by 7 piece, and
Yeah.
I frame it, and the frame's $100. It's
Mm.
usually more than that, but let's just say it's $100. Um, and I say, well, I mean, I spent like 10-ish hours on this painting, at $20 an hour. That's $200
Mm.
plus the 100 for the frame. So I'd say 300, but if that piece is going in a gallery where the gallery is taking
Yep. A commission. Yeah.
45%,
Yeah. Yeah.
you have to decide, well, am I going to just price it up, or am I willing to take that cut?
Mm.
Or are you going to go somewhere in between?
Yeah.
Like, are you going to say, well, instead of adding the full 45%, I'm going to just price it up to 330 or
Yeah.
340, and that
Yeah.
way it kind of helps a little bit.
Right.
And that's usually what I do.
Yeah.
That's usually the way I choose to go because I figure I'm getting exposure
Mm.
in whatever place I'm
Yeah.
in,
Yeah.
so that's
Yeah.
part of the deal. But yeah, it just depends, and
Yeah.
sometimes it just depends on my mood.
I'm really crazy about art prices, and I've of late been making videos, and then I'll make a piece
Yeah.
of art and I'll just put £1 million on it. I'll make another
Yeah.
piece, I'll put 10 million on it. I know there is no
Yeah.
there's no regulation about this, and I'm having fun.
There's not.
But I am
I,
interested, yeah, about
it
how.
also depends on, I mean, do you really want to sell it? I mean, because there are pieces I've done where I'm like, okay, if I got $4,000 for it, I would probably sell it.
Oh, wow.
But if I get less than that, I
Less
really
than
want
that,
to keep
yeah.
it. So like we have a piece in our kitchen that I did in 2011, I think, or 12 maybe, and I love this piece that I did, and it was a little complicated, and it's actually 12 paintings in one. But anyway, it took me a long time to do it, and it was the piece of art I did right out of college, and it's kind of special. And I said, well, I could use $4,000. I wouldn't normally price this at $4,000, but I like it a whole lot. So I've put it in shows before for that amount of money, but I mean, nobody's buying it for that. But that's fine. That's fine with me. Like I'm pricing it at a point where if by some miracle it did sell, I would be like, okay, I'll make a print. That's okay. That wouldn't be the end of the world
Yeah.
because I'd be $4,000 richer.
Yeah.
You know, but I would not want less than that.
Yeah.
I value it at that.
Oh, that's amazing. Okay, now let's look at a few things you've said in the past. Can you help me understand what you mean by create what it is that you see? Now, I'm not saying word for word what I heard you say, but it was something along the lines of creating what you see, not what you think you see.
Right. So that's something Robin used to say to me. She used to say, "Draw what you see, not what you think you see," because your brain gets used to seeing things in a certain way, and so you just register it that way all the time. So, like one of the things, the context of that statement is she taught me how to draw laying down, because a fun experiment you can do is get like some random object, like a bottle of water, something simple, a bottle of water, an apple, whatever. Stick it on a table in front of you, lay your head down on the table, and draw it. don't pick your head up. Just draw it, however much, and you can do this without being an artist, however much detail you want to put in it, whatever. Flip the page over, then don't look at it sitting up. Flip the page over, pick your head up, and then get another piece of paper and draw it sitting up. And then you compare the two, and they're going to look totally different. Whether you can draw or not, it doesn't matter, because your brain is thinking it's seeing that apple in a certain way, but it's really not. And things look different when you're at different angles.
Wow.
So that's something I had to learn, is how to compensate for laying down, because that's totally different.
Really?
So yeah, I've done that exercise when I've done some public speaking things, and it's really fun to watch people do it. Because they come out totally different.
I will. I'm going to take you up on that, and I'm going to try that. It's all fun for me right now, so I'm all about fun and experiments.
Yeah.
So, okay, and also you said it's what was it you said also in the past? Let me see. Did I write that down somewhere? About it all starts with a good sketch. Something about a good painting starts with a good sketch.
Yeah, and that's true for me, for sure. I know a lot of people that who do less controlled work, like abstract and that kind of thing. It's maybe not as true. Their process is a little bit different. But the point of that is, most of the time the sketching is the grunt work. It's the boring part. It's the part that you're not putting color on it. You're not blending anything, and you're not, you're just blocking out where things are going on the page, and it's boring. And sometimes it's really hard, because for me, because I lay down, I do have trouble with proportions.
Yeah.
And getting proportions right on the page, and so I hate that part of the painting. That's my least favorite part. And but it's doing the grunt work to come up with something really good.
Yeah.
And that idea can be applied to anything, right? I mean, you have to do the hard work in order to do the fun work and get a good product.
Wow. Wow, that's really good. I like that, because I like making sketches.
Well, that's good.
That's my thing. You should have seen me at when I was drawing the building today. I was like, if I can get these proportions right this time, everything else is going to be easy. And I was correct. That's the first time I'd made a building sketch with that much detail, and I made it in such a way that after I was done with it, I was so happy. I was like, oh my goodness, this really proves that the method works. Once you get the proportions, the sketch out, everything else just falls in line.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. I mean, my thing, when I'm doing a dog, the biggest stuff for me is getting the basic outline.
Yeah.
And then eyes, nose, jawline, neckline, and if there's legs, or whatever else. But just the basic, where things are.
Yeah.
And then once I'm there, then I can start with paint.
Yeah.
But that basic, this eye is this size in relation to this ear.
To the other, yeah. So when okay, I'm gonna ask you just 2 more questions and we'll end this.
Okay.
Well, you said so you make the sketch, and I guess you make it with light pencil. I'm not a painter, so I've never done it before. And then do you clean that out, or do you paint on top of that?
I usually don't shade. Okay. When I sketch for a watercolor painting, I don't shade.
Okay.
Sometimes if it's a black dog, I'll add some shading just because it's easier to see later. But if you're putting white watercolor over graphite, it's gonna make it muddy. Yeah. So the least amount of graphite I can use, the better.
Yeah.
And I try to do it soft, and I don't mind, some artists really don't like it if you see pencil through the painting. I don't mind it that much. As long as it's not a line that's not supposed to be there.
Standing out, basically.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, just 2 more questions. The one question I'm interested in, because I ask people who come on my show, they're all about their business, all about their interests. But when you're not making art, when you're not saving the world and making it a better place, what does Katherine do with her time?
Katherine tries to go to as much live music as she can. That is my favorite thing to do. My favorite thing is to be at a concert in the front, listening to one of my favorite artists. That's just just
So
move on.
who would you drop everything at this moment, even this interview, to go see?
Oh, I mean, I would go see Little Big Town, Sugarland, Garth Brooks,
Oh wow.
Rod Stewart. I would stop and go see him.
Okay, you can tell
Um,
I'm really feeling very unappreciated at the moment. You would
yeah, well, yeah, I would probably leave for any of them, but you know, and that's mostly because I haven't done live music in a while,
Oh
and so
wow.
I'm getting a little bit of withdrawals. But
Hmm.
um, yeah, I love how music brings people together.
Yep.
Even if it's just for a minute, like
Hmm.
everybody knows the same song, everybody sings it back. If it's a really good musician, they interact with the crowd.
Yeah.
Um, and I love that. I love that interaction. You know,
Oh, that's
um,
lovely.
so yeah. I mean, I can't sing and I can't play an instrument, but I like to sing. I just can't really.
I got
Um,
kicked out of a choir once
uh, I
just
didn't get
because
kicked out, but
they heard me more than they heard the rest of the choir.
yeah. Well, yeah, I would probably too. But that's what's great about a concert is the music's so loud they can't hear you.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So you can sing as loud as you want at a concert. No, and it's just a really good way for me to blow up some steam.
Yeah.
It's just because in that 2 hour, 3 hour period, you're focusing on the music and you're focusing on the concert, and I'm not focused on anything else.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of nice.
Oh, that's
You know?
good. I love, for me, it's playing video games and walks if I can do it. But
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
what I do when I'm not saving the world. Okay, so we are finally at the end of this interview, Catherine. Thanks for being an
No problem.
amazing, honestly, an amazing guest. But I always ask my guests to give a final word, and right now it's more, what's your final word to an artist? I'm just getting in on the scene. Yeah, Catherine the Great. What do you have for me?
Just keep trying.
Hmm,
Just don't stop. I mean it it's really hard. Like it can be really hard sometimes.
hmm,
But like my dad said, keep trying different things, and some things are gonna stick and some things are not gonna stick.
hmm.
And it's really hard to not be discouraged when
Yeah,
they don't stick.
yeah.
Especially if you put a lot of time in, you put a lot of money in.
Hmm,
That can be like, this is just an example, but I published a book with my neighbor in 2019, the
hmm,
very end of 2019.
hmm,
We got it out just before the holidays. We're doing great. We were doing book signings. We were doing all these activities with it and all these appearances, and we were selling it online. And
hmm,
I mean, it was self-published. It's not like we were making a ton of money, but we had some, we were kind of on a roll,
hmm.
and then COVID hit, and then that was the end of the book.
Yeah,
And so like it's very hard when things like that happen.
yep.
And this is a project that I personally had worked on for a year,
Hmm,
before it even came out.
yeah,
So like, yeah, it's hard when stuff like that happens, but
yep.
it does, and you just move on.
Yep, you just move on, literally, and thanks for that. That makes
Yeah.
it makes perfect sense.
And I mean, I'm not saying you can't like throw a fit, have a drink, whatever first, but eventually you just move on.
You just move on. Yeah, it's all
Yeah.
right to whine about it in the
Oh, of
moment,
course.
but then
Of course.
you move past it and
Yep.
just crack on, really.
Yeah.
So Catherine, thanks a lot for that. I really appreciate you coming on this podcast and telling us about your journey. And I can't wait to really share this video and for everyone to see exactly what you've been doing. And I can tell you they're going to be as blown by it as I am. But as part of the whole process, I'm going to be sending you some art, but I'm
Oh,
also going to
really?
be sending you a letter to appreciate you for coming on this show and bringing that value. You
Awesome.
make the world a better place. But this is what I was able to do in the short time that we spoke. Now, unlike my usual thing where I draw from my imagination, I didn't draw this from my imagination. I actually drew it from an actual image. But I was able to make this image out.
Oh, cute.
Now,
Oh, it's Italian Greyhound.
this is an Italian Greyhound. Yes,
That's
it is.
really good.
And the reason I did it was because of your Italian Greyhound.
Yeah.
What's her name?
Her name is Porsche, like the
Porsche.
car.
Okay.
Yep.
So I'm doing this in for Porsche. That's Porche.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yep.
And the reason why I have colors, I'm gonna put some colors there, is Porsche has been playing with your paint. And so there's green
Okay.
on her nose, and there's gonna be pink all over the place and all of that.
You know, it's really funny you say that
Yeah.
because when she and her friend Paisley, the Pomeranian Papillon mix, when they were about, I guess about two or three, they did get into my paint one day, and there was green paint all over my house. I mean, it was on the couch. It was, we could see where they all went because there was paw prints all over the place. Oh yeah, yeah,
That
yeah.
must have been wonderful.
Oh yeah, Mom was thrilled. Yeah, great.
So anyway, I've got this paint. I'm gonna tidy this up, put a bit of
Awesome.
shade because I do love playing with shade, and then put some colors
Yeah,
in there. And then I'm gonna write you a heartfelt letter of appreciation for coming on our podcast,
awesome.
and for sharing a lot of us with your sharing your journey with us, and how far you've gone with CAC art. I cannot wait to see what you're going to be doing in future, and I can't wait to have you on this podcast again to tell us about
Awesome.
what's going on.
That would be great. That would be awesome.
Oh,
Keep in touch for sure.
thank you so much, Katherine. I really
All right.
appreciate this.
All right.
And so for the rest of the viewers, this has been Katherine Klimitas, founder of CAC Art, and Kay saying you have a lovely rest of your day.
All right. You too.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Katherine.
All
Bye.
right. Bye.